Brought to you by GatewayCitySavers.com.
Softli's Scouting Report, hosted by Cliff Saunders, exclusively on 101ESPN.com.
Hello and welcome on into the Softli Scouting Report here on 101ESPN.com. Cliff Saunders, joined as always by our 101 ESPN NFL analyst, Tony Softli, a former Rams Vice President of Player Personnel. Tony, it's the Rams and the Redskins Sunday at the Edward Jones Dome, a 3:05 kick. Despite the 0-2 start, mathematically, the Rams, do they still really have a chance at the NFC West?
You know what, I really don't think so, and I'll tell you why. I think what's going on with the Rams right now, they're losing close games for stupidity reasons, penalties, dropped interceptions, blocked field goal, missed field goals. I think they're still a ways away in depth. I think that San Francisco is still the cream of the crop in this division, and don't count out Arizona. I know they struggled early, they're 1-1, but you know what, they still have a lot of talent. They're coached very well. Seattle will make a little bit of a burst, but I don't think so. I'm still going to go with San Francisco, and the Rams will bring up the rear, but you know what, they need a little bit more depth, and they'll be fine.
So that being said, what are some reasonable expectations to have from here on out because we've had this 0-2 start?
Well, you know what? I think 5-11 is a reasonable record for these guys this year coming up. They just don't have enough weapons. They have to learn to surround Sam Bradford with more weapons, give the ball to Steven Jackson, a little bit more balanced attack, and I think along the way the defense will come up with that. They'll have to find a way to stop these guys with scheme, a little bit more power off the edge, and you know what? Some big plays. Somebody's got to come up with some big plays. Sunday's
game against the Redskins is an opportunity for the Rams to see their old head coach, Jim Haslett, makes his return to the Edward Jones Dome. His defense has kind of been up and down in the early portion of the season. Good against Dallas, not so much against Houston. What have you seen so far?
Well, you know what I've seen is I see a high-power physical defense with Jim Haslett. He uses a lot of weapons and a Rakapo off the edge. Carter, those two outside linebackers can create havoc off the edge, but the key guy, I think, in this is number 30, Landry. I mean, he uses him as a weapon all over the place. He is a guy that is up in the line of scrimmage and blitzing. He's back in coverage. A little bit of liability in coverage, but he's a hammer back there. He's a safety that has speed, and he also hits like a linebacker with a lot of explosion. So those are the things that you got to look for in a Haslett defense.
Washington has a new coach in Mike Shanahan, new quarterback in Donovan McNabb. Maybe Philadelphia got rid of him a year too early. What have you seen from McNabb so far when you've been looking at the tape from his first two games?
Well, you know, he's still Donovan McNabb. I remember when I was with Carolina Panthers in 2003, we went to the Super Bowl. We had to go through Philly to get there. And you know what? Donovan was a hell of a quarterback. He still is now. It looks like he's reshaped his physique. He's throwing the ball better than he has. He's still mobile and escapes out of the pocket. He can be elusive downfield, but he gets out of bounds now. Before he'd shake and bake and try to make a play, he'll get out of bounds. But you know what? What he does best is he ad-libs. Right before he's looking to pass the ball, then run it. So right before he crosses that line to make the run, he'll dump it off to one of his receivers, and you know what? Let them do the running.
You know, every week we talk about matchups, and let's talk about the key matchup. What do you see that being?
Well, the key matchup I think this week is how do the Rams sustain drives? How do the Rams, you know, keep that ball out of Donovan McNabb's hands and go on with that? You know what? It's going to be interesting to see how that happens. I think what they're going to have to do is they're going to have to go like Houston did, multiple receiver sets. They're going to have to throw the ball intermediate and some crossing routes and some digs. In the Jim Haslett defense, the middle of the field is wide open. And I think they're going to take advantage of that.
And finally, let's talk about the injuries, because the Rams once again have been bit hard by the injury bug. There's this next man up theory that has been going on in the NFL forever. So what do the Rams do now, Tony?
You know what? I think what they'll do is they'll, instead of holding up two or three tight ends, I think they're going to activate more receivers. Like Houston, they spread this defense out, and I think if they do that and go 4 or 5 receiver sets and maybe even an empty backfield, putting Jackson in the flat, I think that'll loosen things up for Sam Bradford and give him an opportunity to throw the ball a little bit. Look for more receivers up with only one tight end.
Thank you, Tony. There you have it. It'll be the Rams and the Redskins at the Edward Jones Dome, 3:05 on Sunday. We'll have the pregame at noon on 101 ESPN. Tony will join Randy Carricker and Rick Venturi. Steve Savard and DeMarco Farr will have the play-by-play at 3:05. And after the game, it'll be the coach, Jim Hannafin, and myself having you covered on postgame. For Tony Softli, I'm Cliff Saunders. This has been the Week 3 edition of Softli Scouting Report on 101ESPN.com.